Hello, Double T gang. It's one of these TikTok reaction compilation by Champagne Ducky this time. But today we're gonna look at one which talks about stocks, investing, real estate. We'll be looking at if these tips are legit or they're not. Making videos is hard work, so as always, I'm going to tell you to hit the thumbs up, subscribe, bell button, like, and comment, and share as always. Let's go Double T gang. I haven't watched this. I'm super excited, so let's watch it together.
It was a web bubble, then it crashed, and the viable companies made it through and created massive amounts of wealth. There was a crypto bubble, and the better cryptocurrencies are making big waves now. There's a social media and tech bubble happening right now. Some will survive and make the world better. These were all innovation-based bubbles. They had the right idea, just too much enthusiasm. I think the fintech, automation, and genomics bubbles are about to begin.
I just got a new job and they offer a 401k and a Roth 401k. Which is better? We're both retirement accounts, but obviously I'm better because you invest in me.
I saw this one in part one of my reactions. Check that out.
My employer offers a match. Dude, my employer offers a match too, but because you invest in me with post-tax dollars, you don't have to pay taxes at retirement, meaning all of the money that grew in your account doesn't get taxed. Wait, so 401k, don't pay taxes now, pay taxes later.
It's always important to know your tax deferred and tax exempt accounts.
All that growth is tax-free.
How old are you again? I'm still 18. Have you started investing yet? Well, the truth is, I want to start investing, but I don't know what stock to pick. Why don't you just pick all of them? Pick all the stocks. What do you mean? You can invest in an index fund, which is like a basket full of stocks. So instead of investing $100 into one company, you can invest $1 into 100 companies. Okay, so what are the benefits to index funds? Index funds are best for passive investors. That way you don't have to go crazy trying to guess which stock to pick. That sounds so much easier. I didn't even know index funds existed. Well, stay tuned because in the next video, I'm going to give you some of my favorite index funds.
The market is going to crash again. It doesn't matter when, how, or why. It's not pessimism, it's just a part of the process. And when it does, thousands of amateur investors will be cleaned out. Thousands of people who got into the market for the first time after the recent crash will get burned and jaded because of their ignorance. They will struggle to find a job after losing their savings and their stimulus checks to the crash, spend the rest of their life talking about how evil rich people are and harboring resentment towards them. And they will tell their kids how dangerous the stock market is and continue the cycle of poverty. Don't do this. Go learn now. Learn how to deal with what happens when the world changes. Learn how to deal with what happens when the market crashes. Cycles are a natural part of the economic world, and the people who understand them and act on them win. The people who don't lose. Go win.
So nothing he said in his script was technically wrong, but I don't think it's much actual practical helpful advice in there on how you actually go win. So that one's a little bit too general, I think. But he is right about, cycles and markets going up or down, and over the long term, you can win by investing, particularly picking sort of a basket of stocks through indexing or whatever other means that are available, without picking particular specific one stock at a time, because stock picking is hard. And let's see if any of these TikToks explain that to us.
Making money if you don't spend it, because saving money gives you options. 78% of workers live paycheck to paycheck, meaning their only option is to go back to work. So what options do you give with saving money? Let's say you save $20,000 over a couple of years. You could put a down payment on a house. You could travel the world for 6 months. You could start a business for $20,000. You could work part-time and spend more time with your kids. I could even study abroad or go on a mission trip. Exactly. Saving money gives you the freedom to choose what you want to do with life.
The average cost of 4 years at a private college is $50,900, and a lot of people get a student loan for the whole thing. One of the main reasons people say you should go to college is because you can make more money afterwards. But the truth is, most people struggle with student loan repayment for the rest of their lives.
Check my part 1 for me to explaining why this isn't fully accurate.
5.8%. Just the interest on a loan that big would be $246 a month. What if, instead of going to college, you just invested the same amount you would pay in interest on that loan into the stock market at an average return of 8%? Well, you'd retire with $1.5 million.
Damn, is this one of the flexing ones? Okay. Where's the financial advice? what?
I always get this question, is college still worth it? And like every answer, it depends. You need to consider the ROI, or return on investment, meaning how much do you put in versus how much do you get out. Say you go to a private university and study history. You're going to pay $200,000 for a 4-year degree, and then you'll be making around $50,000, which is not a great return on investment. On the other side, you could go to a public university and study computer science. You'll pay about $60,000 for a 4-year degree, and you'll end up making around $70,000, which is a much better return on investment. So remember, college isn't for everyone. Just make sure you consider your return on investment before going to college.
That's facts. Johnny Finance. He's a pretty legit guy.
What's up, Dad?
How are you?
Good.
Hey, congratulations, man.
I have a feeling this is a real estate one.
You're on track. I saw that.
Oh, yeah.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, congratulations to you, too.
Why?
You see Tesla?
No.
They reported their earnings.
Oh, they did. What is it?
They beat earnings and they're up $80 per share after hours.
What are they, Tesla stock investors?
I know.
A lot of people made bank on Tesla in 2020 because the stock kept skyrocketing.
Things they don't teach you in school. Part 10, if you're moving into an apartment or a dorm, you need renter's insurance. Renter's insurance protects your valuables like your computer or your TV from floods, fires, and theft. When getting renter's insurance, make sure that it protects you from these. It's actually pretty cheap. If you need to cover $5,000 worth of items, it's $5 a month. $10,000, $10. I'll show you guys how to file a renter's insurance claim in the next video.
I mean, that's
on August
pretty
24th,
true.
Apple stock is only going to be $100 instead of $400. The stock's crashing? Yes. No, I'm just playing, bro. See, this is why we got trust issues. Apple is doing a 4-for-1 stock split. What's that? So imagine one stock
just
of Apple
starting
is a
off
cake, and
stock
this cake
picking.
costs $400, but
This
you
is a
can't
very
afford
important
a
thing to
$400 cake.
understand.
Not since that Dogecoin sell-off. But the store wants to encourage more people to buy the cake, so they cut it up in 4 different slices, and they sell each slice for $100 each. So the store made it easier for me to buy the cake, but I'm still only getting as much cake as I can afford.
Yeah, this one's pretty good for beginners, people just starting off in the stock market. You have to know what happens to the company's stock when more shares are issued, when, you know, there's stock splits, reverse splits, etc., etc. A quick Googling will explain to you what each term means, and the practical implications are very complex in the real world, but as long as you understand what it means for you and the stock price, as the buy-in king explains, you'll be Gucci.
I have my own business check. This is my most popular product.
I've seen this TikTok before.
This is my favorite product. This is one of my
Young
most
entrepreneur
expensive
flex.
products. This is my most affordable product.
Question mark,
His janitor kept his $8 million a secret for his
this
entire
is a
life.
pretty famous
This story
case
goes
study.
to show that anybody could be a millionaire by just doing one simple thing. Ronald Reeds, who died at the age of 92, accumulated $8 million by making smart spending and investment decisions. The craziest part is that his family didn't even know about this money. Now, Ronald maintained a very frugal lifestyle. He never spent money unless he absolutely had to. Many people even thought he was homeless because of the clothes that he wore. When he passed away, he left $2 million to his stepchildren, $4.8 million to a local hospital, and $1.2 million to the library he studied investing at.
That's a pretty sick story.
I had to buy multiple rental properties. There's a strategy called the BRRRR strategy. The B stands for buy, so let's assume I buy a property for $50,000.
Okay.
The R stands for rehab, so let's assume the rehab is about $20,000. So now I'm all in for a total of $70,000, $50 plus $20,000. The second R stands for rent, and let's assume this rent's for about $1,000 a month. Now after I rent it out, I go ahead and refinance it, and let's assume I go to the bank and it appraises for $100,000. The bank will then give me 75% of that $100,000, meaning they'll give me a $75,000 loan. So with that $75,000 loan, I actually recoup my full $70,000 investment, and I get an extra $5,000. The mortgage is now $496, and the tenant actually pays $1,000, so I collect the difference between the mortgage and what the tenant pays. After I get that $75,000 back from the bank, I go ahead and repeat it, and that's the BRRRR strategy.
Alright, I don't know if it's really called BRRRR in real life, but that was an oversimplification for a lot of things. He's basically saying take out a second mortgage or mortgage refinancing, You have to know a bit of technical knowledge before you start doing this, and as mentioned in the video, you need a fair bit of startup capital. And the video uses 75 grand, but in cities where real estate is more expensive, you're going to be dishing out hundreds of grands to even get started, and that's just the nature of the game in real estate today. So, not saying that what he said isn't totally legitimate, but know that a lot of steps were missing in his explanation. So it's not super useful, TBH, but I get what the guy's getting at.
Advice for teenagers, what they don't teach you in school, part 1.
Boy.
Number 1, open up your own bank account. This is the first step towards being an adult and learning how to manage your finances. I recommend First Bank Student Checking Account because it specifically is designed for students between the ages of 16 and 25. No monthly fees and free banking online. Number 2, get a credit card. It takes 15 minutes. Most people avoid credit cards until they realize they can't buy a house or a car without good credit. The point of a credit card is to show lenders that you can pay on time and in full. Trust me on this. It is going to help you tremendously in the future, and I recommend Capital One Student Card for teenage students. Number 3, get a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is a retirement account that lets you contribute post-tax money, and at the age of 59, you can withdraw that money tax-free. The reason why a Roth IRA is amazing to start when you're young is because of the power of compound interest. This is when your money is rolling like a snowball down the hill, and it keeps making you more and more money every year. Anyone can become a millionaire this way. In part 2, I will explain the most important steps.
You get a mortgage on a house
it's
for
missing way too many steps,
you took that mortgage
but
out
the
today,
intentions
and it
are
was
good.
a 30-year mortgage at 3.5% interest. For a mortgage like that, your
the
monthly
younger you
payment
start
would be
is
about
better,
$1,347.13. And in total, you would be spending close to $500,000 to buy that house over the next 30 years, because almost $200,000 would be spent in interest payments. But let's say you could put a little bit extra aside and you paid an extra $100 every month. That $100 would save you 20 grand, and you would pay off your mortgage 3 years faster than you would have otherwise. And that's just $100. Let's say you get 2 roommates and charge them both half the price of the mortgage and continue making your normal payments as well.
What we call a rental
This would mean you're making double mortgage payments each month. You would save $121,000 and pay off the mortgage 18 years early. Don't tell me that's not sexy.
I mean, yeah, but some people don't have that much
Here's
extra room
that's
to
save you
rent
tons of money
out,
that they didn't teach you in school. Okay, so most people buy a single-family home and have to pay $2,500 a month for their mortgage. They get no tax deductions and no write-offs.
Very general as well.
Instead, use the house hacking strategy and buy a multi-unit property. Live in one unit for a year and rent out the others. If you charge $2,500 a month for each of the units, that's $7,500 a month, which should cover the cost of your total mortgage.
These numbers
you might be too young to buy a
random.
house now, but you'll buy a house one day. Be sure and save this video.
Really depends on where you're buying the real
Things
estate,
they don't
the
teach
type
you in
of
college.
real estate.
How to own rental property without none of your own money, using the BRRRR strategy and become financially free. I bought this bank-owned duplex for $151,000. Then I put roughly about 50 G's into fixing it up. That's what it looks like right now. So roughly after all the closing costs, all the fees, all the rehab, I'm all in on this property here, right around $205,000. Then I hire a property manager to get both of the units rented out. I was able to get roughly about $1,500 for the top and $1,600 for the bottom. After it was fully rented, I went to the bank and did a cash out refi. After that, the bank sent an appraiser out to appraise the property, and it came back to be around $450K. Based on the appraised value, the bank willing to loan you 75% on your rental properties. So if you do the math, the bank willing to loan me $337 on it, but I end up only borrowing $225. That takes care of my $205 that I was owed, so my new mortgage is $225, and the renter is going to pay that mortgage off in 30 years.
So just a quick note on this and the BRRRR method, and what they're doing is leveraging. You can look up what leveraging is. It's basically when you only put a percentage of the money, and this works great historically in recent years because of real estate markets consistently going up in most places, not everywhere, but in a lot of places. But leverage, just as it magnifies your gains, it can also magnify your losses. So let's say the house, it doesn't keep getting appraised for higher and higher amounts. It gets appraised for lower, then you're on the hook for the money to the bank. So just be careful about leverage, and there's also a negative side to leverage, I'm just saying. And real estate are very leveraged investments, hence you can magnify gains, and at the same time when things start to go downwards, you can magnify your losses as well.
Greatest Investments Ever, Part 10. In 2011, Jay-Z put $2 million into Uber, which was only worth $300 million.
Whoever got in early into Uber,
the company is now worth $90 billion, which means his investment of $2 million is now worth more than $600 million.
Okay.
Darren Hatch recently posted a video explaining how you can invest in the quote-unquote next Tesla Nikola motor for only $15 at a $440 million market cap compared to Tesla's $145 billion market cap.
One of those EV stock.
So let me explain what I'm talking about. On March 3rd, Nikola Corporation and Vecto IQ agreed to create one company focused on the next generation smart transportation.
Once the transaction
closes by the end of July, the new combined company will be called Nikola Corporation and will remain NASDAQ listed under the new ticker symbol NKLA. So this ticker, this stock, VTIQ, will turn into NKLA. And if Nikola's $10 billion in potential pre-order revenue turns into real revenue,
keywords
we assume half the EBITDA margin is Tesla at only 5.8%, and only half the enterprise value to EBITDA multiple at, let's say, 25 times.
Almost everything's cheaper than Tesla, yeah?
Close to $200. That was just my opinion and not advice, but I'm definitely going to buy some shares.
I'm going to see what price VTIQ is on my phone right now.
All right, things they should have taught you in school, part 1.
VTIQ.
So most people are broke because they spend 100% of their income, but I'm going to show you something different called the 50-30-20 rule to keep you out of trouble. So you take 50% of your income and you spend it on your necessities like food and your car and insurance and things like that.
Down to $9
then 20% of your money goes towards your financial goals like investing or maybe paying off debt.
It's nowhere near $200 a share.
And finally, 30% goes towards fun, whatever that means for you, like dining, shopping, travel, anything like that. All right, let's be financially savvy in 2020,
Greatest
guys.
investments ever, part 3. In 2004, 50 Cent struck a deal with Vitamin Water where instead of being paid cash as a brand ambassador, the company gave him 10% equity.
Depending on your
Just
lifestyle.
a few years later, in 2007, Coca-Cola purchased the company for $4.1 billion. Although initial reports claimed that 50 Cent made $400 million off the transaction, he actually had another stakeholder and some taxes to pay. However, he did take home an estimated $100 million, which, if you ask me, is not too shabby. Greatest investments ever, part 1.
These are pretty
In 2013, Kobe Bryant invested $6 million into Body Armor,
I'd like to see those,
popular
but featuring
sports
like normal
His wife
people
Vanessa is left behind with those shares, which are
investments.
now valued at more than $200 million.
Instead of like celebs and like really famous people.
If you can hit this number by the time you're 30, you'll retire a millionaire. Let me show you how.
Where's
Hitting
the math?
$100,000 in your investment account is a huge milestone. It also takes forever, and it requires you to put the most money up front.
It's true. It's hard work.
Straight out of college, and you put $800 a month
Especially when
into
you're
an
young.
index fund, you will likely have $100,000 by the time you're 30. And if you never added another dollar to that account, it would grow to $1 million by the time you were 60, just through the power of compound interest.
Yes, compound returns. Very
no
useful
way.
concept.
You retire early. Imagine never having to work again once you hit 40. This is what I'm doing, and I'm retiring by the time I'm 45. Not by buying any crazy stocks or Bitcoin or Forex, just plain old index funds and ETFs.
Yeah, it's a slow and steady method.
Dude, I just made $2 million day trading, and I used all the profits to buy this mansion. Please tell me you didn't actually use all the profits to buy that house. Oh, but I did. Well, I hope you saved
The term for it is called house poor.
If you didn't, then the government is coming right for that house. Come again? Yeah, since you made $2 million in the short term, the government's entitled to 37% of that. Why should people even invest in
Canada's
stocks if the
more
government
lenient.
takes 25% of my profits? Well, you were only charged so much because you were day trading. If you would have held those stocks for at least 1 year, the government would have only charged you between 5 to 15% on those profits. So the government rewards people who invest for the long term rather than day trade.
That's generally correct, yes.
How to turn $100,000 into $1 million. Buy 10 houses, put 10 grand down. Do it at the same time.
method.
10 houses in one market area. Rent them each out for 2.5 years. Sell each house for $100,000 more than you purchased it for. The renters pay for the mortgage that you have on the property. You cash flow it the whole time. You have rent income, and you sell the property for $100,000 more than you actually owned it for, all inside 2.5 years. That is $1 million. Here's the really cool thing. It's a long-term asset, which means you are taxed capital gains, which means you are taxed at the lowest bracket you possibly could in any sort of financial investment. But then again, school didn't teach you this, your mommy and daddy don't know this, and your Harvard professor didn't teach you it either. Why are we going to school, guys? There are things that you can learn outside of school so you can become a millionaire in 2.5 years. But what do I know? I didn't go to college. I'm just a guy sitting in a Chevy truck.
I love how he says long-term and he keeps throwing out 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. That's not long-term, buddy.
Ebates, Shopkick, Ibotta, Fope,
What is this?
Google
e-commerce?
Opinion Rewards,
Service?
Acorns.
Get paid to do
Fly
service.
Joy. Sweatcoin.
Didn't use any of those.
Make money.
Not sure how legit
Go
they
to
are.
Printful.com and create custom design t-shirts for people to buy. If someone buys a design, Printful will take care of the shipping and production of their product. Then I would put the products on Shopify Print on Demand, Amazon Merch, and Redbubble, and let them do the marketing for me.
Yeah, I know what he's talking about.
What is a Ponzi scheme and why are they illegal? The Ponzi scheme is named after Charles Ponzi. This is Charles Ponzi, and he eventually went to prison. But what did he do that was so bad, you might ask? Well, first, Mr. Ponzi went up to Steve, who's an investor, and says, "Hey, Steve, if you give me $100,000, I'll give you $120,000 back." And Steve says, "Okay." Steve then loans Mr. Ponzi $100,000, hoping to get $120,000 back in return. Mr. Ponzi then goes to Patrick, another investor, and says, "Hey, Patrick, if you give me $120,000, I'll give you $150,000 back." And Patrick says, "Okay." So Patrick then loans Mr. Ponzi $120,000, hoping to get $150,000 back. Mr. Ponzi then pays back Steve his $120K. So Steve got back his $120K, and he is super excited. Then Mr. Ponzi goes back to Steve and says, "Hey, Steve, if you give me $1 million, I'll give you $1.2 million back. I paid you back on your last one." So Steve is like, "Okay," and gives Mr. Ponzi $1 million. Mr. Ponzi then runs away with both their money. Steve and Patrick are set.
Probably one of the best examples
of
how
much I make on my fourplex that I bought during quarantine. This is what it looks like here. The purchase price was $175,000.
Yo, how are you all getting
25% down payment. I had some special things in the contract. I ended up paying around $45,000 for the down payment. Repair costs were around $5,000. I pay around $1,000 a month for mortgage, property taxes, and insurance. Water and trash is around $150. Property management fees around 10%, which is around $209.50. For 3 of the units, I get $500 each, and then for the 4th unit, I get $595. So subtracting all the expenses, I get about $700 a month cash flow.
Very
I could
good,
charge more for those units, paying $500 each, as they are very below market average, but I don't want to make it hard for my tenants during these hard times.
Would make the economics
Follow me for more tips.
less attractive. So you gotta find the right, geographies and places to buy.
This year. Do you want to buy it? Whoa, heck yeah, man. How much should I write on the check? Just put like 340 billion. Why so
Only.
High? Well, we're the future. We're electric. Okay. And we're about to dominate the world in solar energy and
Is he miming Tesla or Elon?
That's what he said 5 years ago, fool. He still hasn't done anything. Shut up, Ted. I don't know, man. You're just asking for too much compared to the amount of sales you're making right now. Look, man, honestly, we're about to make our stock easier to afford with a stock split, and the kids say that it's about to 3x again, so you might as well get in. But for your stock to triple, your market cap would have to triple to $1 trillion, and that's not healthy unless you have the sales to back it up.
And the bigger the company, the harder it gets to grow.
And you can buy this. And if you can buy these, then you can buy this. And if you buy some of these, then you should buy some of this. These might make
decent
you look
advice.
These
Buying the companies instead of just the products. That's decent advice overall.
Let's talk about how much money you lose when you save like a stereotypically responsible citizen. A lot of people don't know how to invest and think that putting money in a savings account is the right thing to do. So let's say you decide to save $100 every month for 10 years. If you haven't been saving money, that's a really great thing to do. That adds up to $1,200 every year at an average interest rate of 0.1%, which means the bank pays you 0.1% of your account value every year. The only problem is that the average rate of inflation is 3.22%. That's how much your money loses value every year.
Right.
So, after 10 years of saving, you'll have lost almost $2,000 of spending power. Savings accounts suck.
They really do suck right now. So
this morning, President Trump actually said we could be entering negative interest rates.
You want to get more returns than the inflation rate. If you go to the bank to borrow money, the bank will actually pay you to borrow money. This is already happening in some parts of Europe, so don't be surprised if it's coming to the United States and Canada. That's unlikely, to be honest. Hasn't happened yet.
Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, so you don't have to. Part 1, Escaping the Rat Race. It's the fear of starting over, being fired, and not being able to pay your bills that keep most people tied down to regular jobs. For Rich Dad, a 9-to-5 is a short-term solution to kickstart financial stability.
Wait, what?
I think
What's
I just
the rest?
figured out how to make free money. We all know what software as a service is.
Free
AKA
money,
cloud computing.
SaaS.
Tons of companies do it, and all of their stock charts look like this. Right. So I made an Excel sheet of the most popular software as a service
companies. Does it mean the future
then
of
I compared
those
their 12-month
companies
growth
will look
rate,
like that?
their gross margins, how much their stock returned on their day of the IPO, how much their stocks returned since IPO to today, how much their stocks returned since day one close of IPO today, and how much their stocks returned year to date. 1,537% profit? I mean, this is crazy. So then I found other software as a service companies that are already listed to IPO soon. I took that, I found their 12-month growth rate and their gross margins, and then compared them to the companies that are already public, and the numbers are higher. Do you guys see where I'm going with this? Either we're in a tech bubble or these stocks are free money.
It's never free money.
Greatest Investments Ever, Part 7. In 2016, Kevin Durant invested $1 million into the popular delivery service Postmates. His investment has since made him a 13 times return on investment, now valued at $13 million.
Alright, Double T gang, thank you if you watched this far. There's some good tidbits in there, but overall not too impressed. There's a lot of generalities, not enough details. There's a lot of nuance and things that go into, real estate, stocks, and entrepreneurship as well. If you want to learn more particularly about the stock aspect, which I sort of specialize in, you can check out my Money Talk series. I also go a little bit into real estate and also stocks and funds that mimic real estate, so you don't have to do the actual, changing the light bulb, plumbing the toilet. Of course, if you're wealthy, you can hire a property manager, but that's not the case for most people, right? So if you want to learn the actual dynamics and the mechanics of all that in more details, rather than just talking in general terms, you can check out once again my Money Talk series. Other than that, this is Tahmid signing out. I'll see you on the next one.